Hey, what's up? This is Asher here from Revenue Journey. Now I'm recording this video on a fairly rainy Thursday afternoon, but I wanted to do something different in this video. Now, if you see my content, you will have seen a lot of content around me talking about Clay, talking about how I use that for outbound campaigns, and giving some ideas on how I can use or how you can use Clay to actually also accelerate your outbound process, especially if you are leading a sales team, you're trying to get clients to respond to cold emails, or you're a business owner. So those are some of the things that I do. But today I wanted to take a step back and do something different, and I wanted to talk about a topic that's related to strategy, and I titled it Why Sales Organizations Fail and How to Fix It Using AI as an Enabler. So I'll go and share my screen, show you some process flow charts and show you some ChatGPT cool stuff, and hope it's helpful for everyone out there. So just some context, for those of you who do not know me or you're seeing my content for the first time, I used to be an SDR and an AE, right? So I used to be a sales rep in multiple SaaS companies, and I've always been in what you call early APAC teams or early Southeast Asia team. So we are typically the first on the ground, or I was typically the first on the ground, or second on the ground, or third on the ground, where we are trying to sell into a market that may not have heard of our solutions before, or maybe they have used other solutions but have not heard of our brand. And I think a lot of times I had, from personal experience, seen how sometimes the go-to-market approach fails simply because we don't understand the market sophistication and we don't understand how to segment it properly. So I'll show you what I mean, right? And if I take a step back, I think a lot of times there needs to be a little bit more thought and in terms of just understanding simple things like market segments. For example, a lot of companies, they know the product well, they know the benefits, generally what they do, and maybe a sales leader or someone who's leading a sales team or someone who's leading the regional team may just say, hey, this is what we do, this is why customers should use us, go out and sell. However, we don't take enough time to break it down into market segments. So we don't use things such as firmographics data, industries, company size, location, region, as well as revenue to determine the different approach. Because the fact is, sometimes a solution, yes, generally they may have the same benefits to everybody, but it slightly differs in terms of industries. And the second question that a lot of sales organizations, I think they don't ask, or rather maybe they ask, but they don't educate their sales reps on the ground, is they don't educate them on the level of maturity in terms of understanding your type of service or your type of solution. Now, if you read this book called From Using Straws, it talks about the 5 levels of market sophistication. It basically highlights to you that for every type of company or solution that you're selling into or industry, there's always 5 levels of market sophistication. Level 5 meaning like, hey, someone knows the kind of solutions very well. So one example could be, hey, lead generation. Hey, every company has heard about lead generation as a service. So if someone knows it really well, okay, then you have to have a different approach to the market. But if someone is level 1, so think about the early days of, let's say, AI, ChatGPT coming out. People is just thinking about, okay, what is AI? What can they do? Okay, I roughly understand what are the things, but what are the use cases? In those kind of approach, when the market sophistication is really low, you also have a different go-to-market motion, right? So I would imagine, well, like what ChatGPT did in the early days, trying to get people to use AI, yeah, they were working with sort of a level 1 or level 2 market. So things like that. And I think it's really important to first understand it. And I break it down into 3 types of market maturity, right? You have the high maturity where maybe you're selling a commoditized service or product, and chances are if people are not buying from you, they are already using a competitor, or maybe they have tried to do that service themselves in-house. In those kind of cases, well, you need to give a compelling reason why they should work with you instead of their current provider. You got to show a lot of value up front. You need to showcase similar customers just like them to give confidence. You got to give some kind of guarantees, right? Which is why sometimes people talk about buyout contract, meaning like, hey, now that you are convinced that we are better, why not we buy out the remaining of your contract so you don't feel like you're losing anything. And in the US, a lot of people are doing this actually. A lot of SaaS companies are doing that. So this is pretty good, especially if you want to win a high maturity market, a big account, for example. So at the end of the day, you just got to work harder and spend more time to break into those accounts. Now let's talk about the medium maturity. These are probably customers who sort of just exploring solution. They start to understand that, well, there seems to be a better way to do things out there. These companies seem to be doing it well. I'm starting to explore some solutions. Now, in this case, they are medium maturity. You got to talk about why you're better than the competition out there. I feel you should showcase something unique that you do that other people doesn't do. This could be the way you market yourself. This could be maybe you have a certain thing that is really important to you or rather unique to you. And you also showcase similar customers, right? Say, hey, we have customers just like you who went from 0 to 1 with us and who used us, ditched other competitors, and they got these results. But you still got to educate them because sometimes they may think that, hey, there's a better way, but you got to still educate them that, hey, yes, it's a better way, and this is actually a tangible impact. So this is medium maturity, and obviously you have the low maturity, right? And this is a lot of times my experience, especially being in a new region where a lot of times the companies I work for, they are trying to expand into APAC for the first time. I'm the first or second AE or SDR there. A lot of these customers may have low maturity. Sorry, I don't think I should have exploring solutions here. So I'll just put low maturity. Yeah, they don't even understand. They don't even know that there's a different process out there. There's a better way out there. And I think this is the part where if we take a step back, the sales leader, or rather the person who's trying to expand into this region, really need to understand a few things. Number one, understand deeply about their current world, why they choose to stay in their current process. Is it because they just don't know it? Or is it because the current process is just cheaper, better, and it's easier? You know, because again, sometimes if you're selling a software to a company that's based in, let's say, Vietnam or somewhere, they may not really want to go through the trouble because there's concerns around security risks, and sometimes it's maybe just better to stay at where they are because their current way is cheaper, is easier. And that's why it's really important them to educate them about the potential cost or loss opportunity of staying in the current state. And we need to be proactive in terms of giving them resources to actually make those costs tangible. This could come in the form of a calculator, come in the form of some kind of report that's specific to the region, specific to the local country. And you really got to share case studies, right, of companies who went from 0 to 1 after using your solution and start to show them a whole new world if they use your solution. And the fact is, you see, there's a lot of things that need to be done. So early trying to go into a new market with low sophistication or low maturity or low understanding is going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of resources. But there is what we call that first mover advantage, right? If you are first to do it, you can be a market leader in that region. But as we mentioned, the problem is that a lot of companies, based on my experiences, based on what I hear from other people's experiences, they don't go through these steps properly. And a lot of times there could be many reasons. Maybe they are just given a quota and the easiest thing to do is not to plan, just hire a bunch of sales reps, go out into the market and sell. So I think that's the problem, right? So through go-to-market strategy, the way I feel, it really takes someone to sit down and really think about all these factors. Now, obviously, this is on a very basic level, right? But I think this is what should be done. So this is the step-by-step process. Now, once you've identified all this is where you can get into, I guess, the fun part, where you start to put together TCs or put together a document. So in this particular example, I just want to use this company remote because obviously now with all the questions around deal rippling, I just decided to use remote, right? I have a few friends who worked there before, and I know a few acquaintances who is working there now as well, and I just thought it's a pretty interesting company to use. Now, remote, obviously, they provide a lot of services, right? But one of the things they provide is EOR services, employer of records. It's actually getting a lot of traction, especially after COVID, where international hiring becomes more common. Now, think about today, if you were to bring an SDR or AE into the company, a lot of times they may not come from a HR background, or they may not have similar solutions before. Then it's important for them to understand all of these things. Really importantly, they don't have to understand the theory, but there should be a document where they can look at to tell them, hey, this is the market segment you're targeting, this is their common problems, this is how you should target them, these are the common problems we solve for them, these are the benefits, this is the tangible cost. How can you, after understanding this, put it together into a nice document such that you can give it to them, they read it, at least they go into the market with at least a 50% understanding of what they should do. And I think that's really what we call sales enablement or sales empowerment, empowering the sales rep. Because I think a lot of times deals are not won simply because the sales rep don't understand what they're talking about. And yes, even though it's the responsibility of the sales rep to go and understand the product, but I think it's also a responsibility of the organization to enable them. And I'm going to show you using remotes example how I would do it and work together with ChatGPT to come up with such documents. So this is how I will use AI or ChatGPT in this case to have a conversation, to work together with AI and to build what we call a document that gives a new sales rep a good idea on how to approach the market and what kind of language to use. So you can see a couple of prompts I've given. Firstly, I gave the company name, right? In this case, like I say it's remote, and I basically use voice messages to just type everything out because typing out can take a lot of time. So the first things first is I say, hey, give me just general information in terms of services they offer and everything. And obviously we have all this different information, right? So EOR, contractor management, global payroll. Now, I just want to say I'm not an expert on remote, but this looks fairly accurate. So if there's any employees of remote, please let me know if this is accurate. But again, this is what ChatGPT tells me, so I'm just rolling with it in this demo. And we have things like benefits, ideal client profile. Now, many people may actually stop here and say, okay, yeah, this is good. I'll put together into a document and I'll give this to a sales rep. But I think there's a lot more conversations you can have with AI when you're coming out with what we call the go-to-market strategy. So again, we have the ICP, we have the personas, and we have the key features as well. So in this case, I said, hey, let's just focus on one part. Because again, a sales rep, sometimes they may just be selling a specific services, or they may want to have a certain focus in a certain region. So let's take EOR, for example. I say, hey, just focus on the EOR part. Give me the same information. So things like features, benefits, as well as ICP and everything. So we continue. And let's say today I'm a sales rep that's targeting US or the UK. I may even want to start saying like, hey, for countries like US or the UK, or maybe you can even put in APAC, Australia, Singapore, whatever that may be. Great. So now we have all of this different basic information. This is a good start. Again, as I said, many people stop here, but I think there is value in terms of having that continuous conversation with AI now that they have a lot more context. And this is where we will start to ask ourselves the question. So in this case, we want to also find out, hey, the different market segments. All of the different market segments, like the company size, for example, what is their level of maturity? Do they actually understand what EOR services? So this is where we start to ask AI the question. And in this case, I'm using US and UK as an example, just to showcase two different types of countries, right? And in the US, they say that, hey, large enterprises, well, they're generally familiar. Okay, startups and mid-size, they need education. And these are the personas that you should go after. Finance, HR, legal teams, yeah, maybe founders, CEOs, HR leaders as well. So we have now a general understanding of market segments. And depending on the company size, for example, they will have different level of understanding, or what we call different level of market certification or maturity in terms of understanding your types of service and solution. So let's say right now you are a sales rep and we just pick a segment, right? We pick a segment where let's just focus on the mid-sized companies and startups. You're an account executive, you're a salesperson trying to sell EOR services. Tell me a few things. Number one, why would they actually resist your offer? Why are they still sticking to their way? Because again, think about it. We want to really understand deeply about their world, about their current world, why they choose to stay in their current process, and what should we educate them about? What resources should we give to them? So we are really just building it out together with AI here. So let's understand why US mid-sized companies resist EOR services. Okay, maybe they are familiar with the status quo. Always hired locally, have never had to use contractors for international work, and they assume that's the only way. Lack of awareness, perceived cost, fear of complexity, sounds about right. And then we continue to ask, hey, what are the painful consequences of sticking to a current process? Because again, people only buy when the pain is big enough. People may not necessarily buy if they like you. Yes, maybe if it's cheap, sure. But if you're selling to organizations, they need to be able to justify the cost of trying to buy your service or solution. So we are trying to understand, hey, what's the painful consequences if they stick to current process? We've got a lot of information as well. Risk of fines and lawsuits, revenue disruption, wasting 6 to 12 months, losing top talents, productivity loss, things like that. And we also ask, hey, how can we convince these type of companies to consider EO? Well, we can use fear of loss, ask pain-pointed questions. So again, good information and some of the use cases and case studies. But I want to go a step further. Again, we're just trying to have a conversation with ChatGPT, right? I asked them, well, you've given me the pain points. You've given me things that I should look out for, such that if we see these things, it means that they could be good to use our services. I now ask them, as a sales rep, what are the public data points or triggers I can use to tell me that this is the right time to pitch EOR services to them? And they gave me a lot of things as well. Hey, if a company is hiring or there is expansion announcement, these triggers that you can use to then pitch your EOR services. Funding announcements, for example. Or maybe you see that they are hiring international contractors instead of employees. And they even tell me where can you find these triggers. So this is good. Now, as you can start to see, these triggers can eventually be put into Clay, and you can use Clay to use it as and only surface these accounts when those triggers are being seen. So just some examples over there. Recent capital funding, maybe you can use Crunchbase, PitchBook. Yeah, this is an example as well. We could use it as a database. And hiring remote or distributed teams. Yep, and we see, yeah, if they have company website states remote, things like that, yeah, that could be good companies that we should go after as well. Or maybe leadership changes. So again, we have a lot of good information. It tells us the triggers. And it even gave us a table here to tell us how we should prioritize it. And the last thing is just take a look at the website again and just tell me what are some of the case studies that I could put together. So again, case studies, everything is over here. So I will just skip through this part, right? Because case studies, everybody know about it. Now, this is the last thing that I really want AI to do. I said, help me build together a permissionless value proposition. Now, this is what it is, right? It's something valuable that you can provide upfront in a cold email, for example, or cold call, without needing the prospect's permission to immediately capture their interest and establish credibility. Now, by the way, I just want to give, I would say, props to Jordan over here. So Jordan Crawford, he was the one that sort of came out with this permissionless value proposition, right? So all this concept is from him. He came out with it, and I think it's really useful. So let's take an example. If today you are a remote.com sales rep, this is what you could give to a prospect. Number one, you could give them a global hiring compliance report. Sure, this is pretty good. You show them actual risk and compliance, but it may be too big. Okay, but this is how you could use it, right? You could hook them in and say, hey, I put together an industry-specific hiring compliance report. Here are the key information. Can I send you more information about it? Then you send them a bigger one, but you take the fields that are important to them and straight away you hook them in. Another way is that you could give them a cost saving calculator. You say, hey, I noticed that you are trying to hire internationally. Do you know that managing international payroll can cost 5 to 6 times more? Here's the calculator. I sort of did a quick calculation for you. And again, you can use Clay to automate this part, right? If you roughly see that, hey, they're hiring 5 people or 6 people overseas, and you are trying to just take the information and say, hey, I noticed you're hiring 5 overseas. If you use EOR, this is what you could save as compared to doing it yourself. That is really valuable as well. Straight away, you showed them value, and you straight away show them that you could do something for them. And lastly, yeah, benchmark report. And again, you could give them a report and say that this is what you could do, how long it takes. So you're showing them very tangible results and very tangible numbers. And again, if you can do something like this in a cold email, you are actually educating them, and straight away you are giving them resources upfront. You are making it easy for them to say yes to taking a call with you and to finding out more, because straight away you can show the tangible impact. And the last thing that I think would be a sweet thing to do is just to put this into a document. So I told ChatGPT, great, you have all this information. Now think of yourself as a sales enablement expert. I want you to put this together into a format that I can put into Google Docs. And that is exactly what they did. So we came out with this final document, which again, I just had this conversation with AI maybe for the past 20 minutes, just going back and forth. And straight away, they can give me a fully detailed document that I can pass to a new sales rep or someone who maybe has not sold remote before, and tell them, hey, just take a look, read through this. These are some of the data points that can use. These are some of the triggers they can use. These are the messages that you can use when you're trying to reach out to these companies. Hey, this is how you should approach them. So just think about how important it is and how good this can be for a new sales rep. Because again, they may come from different backgrounds. They may not fully understand why the company exists, why it's so important. But just having that conversation with AI, you can actually put together something really good for them and help the whole go-to-market strategy. So I hope this is useful. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys learned something, and looking forward to the next one.